Have you ever loved something so much that you couldn't imagine life without it? For me, that love of my life was baseball. All I ever wanted to do in life was play baseball. Before I could walk, I was pretty much already throwing a baseball. My dad was huge into baseball, so it was kind of passed on to me. I accepted Christ in my life when I was 6 years old, and basically right after I prayed the prayer, the first thing was, okay, God, you make me a Major League Baseball player, then I would share your word. So it's kind of real, okay, God, you do something for me, then I'll do something for you. So it wasn't really the right heart angle. And so I was in church every time the doors were open. I knew about the Bible, but I really didn't have that it really didn't click with me yet. I didn't have that personal relationship with Jesus. It was still very conditional. You do something for me, I'll do something for you. When I was 8 years old, I was playing in a summer baseball tournament, and I hit a ball to right field. I took a big turnaround first, realized I was probably going to get thrown out at second, come back, and do a pop-up slide into first, give the coach a high five, and I passed out. About 30 seconds later, I can see the trees kind of blurring back to vision. I heard the ambulances coming. I was scared. My dad was the first base coach. He was standing over me, and a couple of the other coaches I could just see the worried looks in their faces. The paramedics showed up. They did a bunch of tests. They said, you know what, Zach, it's just dehydration and you're fine. And so I took the day off. I took a couple of weeks off of baseball, but I continued the life I was living. I was doing everything for my glory and trying to get what I wanted out of it instead of really living the life that God called me to live. A couple of years down the road, I was doing the same thing, playing another summer tournament. This time I was on first base. Teammate hit a ball into the left field gap. Rounded second, I stepped on third, and I kind of started stumbling around. I was losing consciousness. I could hear the third base coach. He was screaming at me, get back on the bag, get back on the bag. I could hear it, but it wasn't really clicking with me. And at that point, my parents in the stands kind of knew something was wrong. So they take me out of the game. We go straight to the hospital. 4 hours of tests, the treadmill test, the breathing test, EKGs. The doctor walks in and goes, you know what, Zach? You've been diagnosed with a thing called long QT syndrome, and you'll never be able to play baseball again. And long QT syndrome is a thing where you get too much adrenaline to your heart, and it causes you to pass out or have a heart attack. So right then and there, the doctor told me I'll never play baseball again. My world was shattered. I just sat there and I was like, God, how could you say you love me so much, but let something so terrible happen to me? I was angry at God. I wanted nothing to do with Him. My whole world just collapsed with that one statement. I now had to sit in PE. I was usually the happy-go-lucky kid running around all the time. In PE, I had to sit on the curb and watch my friends have fun, just hoping they wouldn't ask me why that I couldn't play the sport anymore, that I was able to play with them last week. I started developing anxiety issues. There was one night where I woke up in the middle of the night and I was so stressed out, I felt like I couldn't breathe. So I started yelling for my parents, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. The ambulance comes, they do some more tests, and like, you know, it's just, your son has some bad anxiety, you should probably see a counselor. So I started going to a counselor. I still wanted nothing to do with God. I was still mad at Him. And one day my mom came up to me and said, you know what, Zach, it's basically like we lost our son. You're a completely different kid. And hearing that from your mom, it kind of shook me a little bit. And so, you know, I went straight to my room and I opened up my Bible and I came across the verses. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work heartily is something done for the Lord and not for men. And I kind of realized that I was living my life all wrong. And I prayed right then and there, and I said, you know what, God, if I never play baseball again, then so be it. But I'm going to use every chance I get to share your word. Around this time, I started going on mission trips to the Dominican Republic with my family. I got super involved in my youth group, and just really using the other talents that God gave me to share His word and investing in the friends around me. Every year I still had to go to doctor's appointments just for annual checkups, just to see how things were progressing. And I remember one time at the doctors were sitting there and the nurse was reading a book called, or my mom was reading a book called A Purpose-Driven Life. And the nurse recognized it and called my mom over and was like, hey, I read that book too. Well, long story short, my mom shares our story with her, and she knows the head doctor in Minnesota that is the head doctor of Long QT. And so she puts us through all these like back doors and gets us in touch with him. And so we get to go to this doctor, and the doctor looks at me and goes, you know what, Zach, there's this new surgery that you could have that could allow you to return to baseball. When I heard that, I was like, wow, like the younger me would have loved to go back to baseball, but now after going through everything I've been through, it's like, God, is this really what you want me to do? And my mom was kind of like, you know what, Zach, I really feel like you need to do this. And so I was the 8th person in the US to have this surgery, and it kind of went into the left armpit and it took out some of the adrenal glands that I had too much of. And so the doctor looked at me and was like, you know what, Zach, you're allowed to go back to baseball. So I prayed right then. I was like, you know what, God, we're going to do this the right way. It's going to be about you and not about me. My first year back playing baseball was my freshman year of high school, and I was super rusty. But through hard work and just staying in God's Word, He gave me the blessing of being able to become a college athlete. But basically through my story, I learned that your purpose is greater than your success. God doesn't love us more or less because of how we play on the field. He's more concerned about us using our gifts and talents to show His love to those around us. And a lot of times our teammates aren't in front of pastors and able to hear the gospel. And so God calls us to be the gospel to our teammates and to use the situations where we're in the locker room with our teammates, when we're on bus rides, plane rides. That's what God has called us to do, is to be a light in those kids' lives. I'm Zach Vogel, and this is my Firestorm story.